Good evening. This is Tom KB4HQA, and this is the HQARadio Sunday live show for August 12th, 2012. Good evening, everybody, especially out in the chat room. Appreciate you in there and everybody watching. Tonight we got a lot of little things we're going to go over. It's kind of like last week. We're going to talk about nets, HF and VHF nets, and see if we get somebody a little riled up over a complaint I've got about one of them. But we'll see what happens with that. But we're also going to talk a couple little things about the Curiosity rover that landed. I mean, if you were under a rock and didn't hear about this, or was way too busy watching the botched coverage from NBC of the Olympics, we're going to go over the Curiosity rover a little bit and a couple little neat things about it. Also, we're going to talk about, we'll mention something about the upcoming ham fests that are coming up also. But first, I want to thank people that have finally been sending emails in. I've been trying to get people to send in emails about show suggestions and everything, and being that more people are starting to watch the show, there are some suggestions coming in. And after last week's show, a couple came in that I really appreciate. One was I did a show last week about Kickstarters, and I did mentioned two different groups that did Kickstarters for ham radio. One was, which I butchered this gentleman's name last time, Mr. Dornbro, I think it was. And then the people over at the West Palm Beach Amateur Radio Club that are doing the museum, they both sent me very nice emails thanking me about, mentioning their thing on the show and everything. And, that's something I've seen on QRZ. If there's anybody out there that has different stories about different things about people promoting the hobby, or something that's good going on, or somebody working with schools and trying to get clubs started or doing something like that, send me an email. Let me know, and I'll be more than happy to talk about it on the show. But this one email I want to read, and this came to me, and this is what I appreciated. I mentioned that I don't have a PayPal. I don't have any sponsors. I do this just as part of the hobby. I believe that it's just like getting on the radio and talking. I get on here and talk. And I got a letter from a nice ham, K5HUM. And Mike is down there in Mississippi, south end of the state. And I'm going to read this verbatim, word for word. And I really appreciate this email. Hey, Tom. I enjoy your program. It's also nice to see a ham generously contributing his time and money to the furtherment of ham radio and ham's utilization of the internet without the typical begging for donations that is becoming so common today. Hope to bump into you on Google Hangouts sometime. I monitor Hangouts 24/7 to accommodate family and friends. Keep up the good work, 73s. Mike, K5HUM. Mike, I know you're in there in the chat room, and I know you're watching again tonight. I appreciate that. I really do. That's what I want to see. I don't expect anybody to send me money. I don't expect anybody to, say, well, here, I'm going to give you a product. Can you review it? No. If I'm reviewing a product, I usually end up buying it myself anyway. All I ask is that you tell people about the show. Tell them, hey, good or bad, say, hey, this guy's doing some great stuff for amateur radio. Watch his show, check it out. Or you got a club page that you could put a link to my show on. Do that. I'd be more than happy. That would be great. I don't expect any monetary gain on this, and I don't plan on making any money off of this. But that would be nice, and that's starting to happen. There's a lot of clubs that have put links to my shows. I've made. There was an article in the in one of the big ham radio web pages in the UK. I think it's the Southgate Amateur Radio Club that mentioned my show from last week about the Kickstarter projects. I appreciate that. I really do, and that's all I expect. even if you don't like it, say, oh, look at this guy wasting time getting on there. Tell somebody about it. I don't care if it's good or bad. Just let people know, and hopefully we'll get some more people here watching. And like I said, I'm not in it for the cash. So, but Mike, I appreciate the letter, and we're going to be reading more emails. I don't know if we're going to do anything like if you want to send pictures of your shack, and we'll put them up here like they do on Ham Nation. I don't know if we'll do that. I'm more interested in what you're doing with the hobby and promoting the hobby, or working with kids or schools. If you volunteer and you help out at a local school to help them with their ham radio club, or you got them to start a ham radio club in a school, or you go out and you always do JOTA every year. You set up radios and help out the local Boy Scout group to help them get their radio badges. That's the information I'm interested in. I would like to see that and feature that in the show and talk about it. Anybody that does classes, training people, Elmering people, that's what I'm interested in. That is where I look at it and say, here, these people are doing good things. Let's, get behind these people and give them a hand. That makes my day. So, but that's enough of their emails. Before we start talking about the nets, I want to bring up the second item, which was the Curiosity rover. Gotta be a couple hams working at the JPL. I want to show you a couple pictures that I got off the internet. Now, this first picture, I'm really not sure that this is any undoctored picture. The gravel looks pretty thing, but the little Martian in here, I don't know if he's actually there, if Marvin's actually there or not. But if you bypass just Marvin, and that's one of the pictures from the surface, and it's amazing the quality and what they're sending back already, and it's just amazing what they had to do to get this thing there and actually land it. And to be honest with you, when they were talking about this last week before it landed, I would have probably taken the bet that it was going to make a big divot in the ground, and I was wrong, and I'm glad they were. But I want to show you this one picture of the wheel. Now, if you don't know about the wheel, they judge the distance by the turn of the wheel in the dirt. If you look at this demonstration, you'll see right in the middle of the picture where the tire tread is, there's cutouts in the wheel. And that's actually Morse code. Those three lines spell out J, P, and L from bottom to top. So as it goes through the dirt, which is this second picture, you'll see that it makes the marks in the dirt of the three letters. And if you look at the top, you've got da-da, did-it, you've got da-da-da, did, and da-da-da-da. So yeah, there's a couple hams working there, and I'm glad to point that out. I thought that was pretty neat when I seen that. Also, if you're interested in it, I'm trying to find out the information. I'll have it probably for next show, or you can probably find this out on your own. The telemetry that the unit sends up and down to the two orbiting satellites is using 440. They're using a frequency that is ham band secondary use, and I'm trying to find out if as hams we've got enough equipment to receive that or be able to receive the telemetry and monitor it here. So that information I found is in Amateur Radio Newsline's report for this week that came out Friday, and it gives the frequency and everything on one of the news stories. So check that out, and you could, you got a decent satellite setup, you may be able to receive the telemetry. And anything else that's amateur related to that, we'll try to cover, and I think we're also going to try to get our setup back up to try to talk to the ISS when it passes and do a show on that. So we like to do a lot of things with, the space agency. Like we got to see Doug Wheelock, the astronaut that was on the ISS, making contacts. He was at Dayton last year. Got to talk to him a little bit, and I got a little autograph thing up above my head there, a picture of him. It's the hobby's neat, and there's a lot of different facets you could do and play with, and we'll see if we could try to cover mostly all that. Now, let's get into the main part of the show, which is going to be about nets. Nets serve purposes, some of them more than others. There's rag chew nets, there's emergency nets, there's traffic handling nets, there's I've heard of the tractor net. The people just get on and talk about their tractors and what they're going to plow today, So there's a ton of nets. There's Bible study nets. There's the Maritime Mobile net on 14.3. There's a ton of different nets. Ham Nation has nets for after their show. They talk about the show and have people check in, and you'll talk to maybe Bob will check in, or Gordo will be on 40. There's a lot of different things like that. Amateur Logic TV, they're going to do their show on the 15th. So they're going to have a net. I don't know if it's going to be this Monday or next Monday, but they'll have a net 8 o'clock on D-Star to talk about the show. Now, nets serve a purpose, preparing for traffic handling, the HF nets. Now, VHF nets, 99% of them are either club nets, where they'll have a weekly net for club members to check in, or there'll be emergency nets, like Aries nets. And you practice checking in. A lot of the clubs will do through the repeater. Every once in a while, maybe every couple other months, they'll go out and do a simplex net. Send people out to shelters or the local fire stations, and they'll be in their mobiles, and they'll be at each different part of the county and talk into the net control station. And if the net control station cannot hear one of the other stations, at least if another station can hear them via simplex, they could do a relay into net control and pass the traffic. There's some stations that are still using packet radio with that. Some of the other clubs are using D-Star radios, which have a data back channel. So you don't need a packet radio. You can have your D-Star radio, have a laptop plugged into the data port, and in between your talking, it'll key the radio and send a text message, data message, which you can see through programs like D-Rats or a number of other different programs. But that's a totally other different thing. But they're using that for passing traffic, and being it's on the computer. If they're using a program that has a form, say for example you're at a shelter and they need cots, or they need more cases of bottled water, or they're really low on bandages because a lot of people were hurt and scratched or whatever. You could fill this form out, send it through the data channel. They could have it and make a physical printout. They can make copies of it, hand it to somebody at net control, and they could take care of the situation from there. So the VHF nets are great to practice. And like I said, there's always the rag chew nets. Just people checking in from different parts of the country, like the Southeast. There's South cars, there's Mid cars, there's the Georgia cracker net. There's tons of them. There are tons of them out there. And 40, 80 meters, 20 meters, that's where you usually find them. And they talk about just about anything. Now, the reason I brought this up, and I am going to give a disclaimer right ahead of time, I am not upset with the type of net that this is. Okay? Right off the bat, I want to say this. I am not upset with the type of net this is. I'm upset with where they're having the net. And I'll give my reason why. If you don't think it's a big deal, no problem. I think it's a problem because of the channels, the situation. Now, let me show you the too many mice, too many screens. let me bring up the screen. I want to show you where I read this at. Now, this is... I read this on QRZ, and what caught my eye is the title, Ham or Chick-fil-A. That didn't bother me. Whatever people want to do or whatever they think or what restaurant they go to, what belief they have, I have no problem with that. And then I read about the net. Find out what the Bible has to say about this and join us on the Amateur Radio Bible Study Net. The net is 7:30 p.m. Pacific, and it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday evenings. Not a problem. Here's the problem I have with it. 60 meters. They're putting this net on one of the channels on 60 meters. 60 meters only has 5 channels. Secondary use. Only 5 channels. It's not like you could space out on 80 and look for a segment, or go on 40 and look on a segment in the general class portion. It's on 60 meters on channelized. So you're taking a net, like I said, doesn't matter what net, and you're locking up a frequency for half hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 nights a week on a band that only has 5 channels to begin with. We have a gentleman's agreement with contest where you don't see contesting on the work bands. Okay? 60 meters, I don't know why they put the net there. One, not a lot of people have new radios that cover 60 meters. And not a lot of people have their radios modified to do 60. So why they pick 60, I don't know. Because nobody's really using it that much yet. Because of the situation with, you basically got to make an antenna for 60. You might be able to get a tuner that'll tune a Wyndham or a G5RV that may get you on to 60, but it's pulling high SWR down for 60. You usually got to build I have an antenna, I have a dipole made, an inverted V made for 60. And I used to get on 60 when I had a radio that was modified. This ICOM is not modified. I haven't been on 60 in a couple years. I don't have a problem with the type of net it is. I just have a situation where I don't believe that you should tie up a frequency that's only 5 frequencies. Now, if you agree with me, great. If you don't agree with me, fine. This is my opinion. That's what I'm bringing up. But that's the reason I wanted to talk about nets. Nets are great. Nets are good to get out there and talk to other people. Nets are good to practice traffic handling. Like I said, Bible study nets, Boy Scout nets, whatever. Whatever the part of the hobby you like about. Technical nets, you want to talk about building amplifiers or kit building or QRP. I'm all good for nets. It's just that I don't believe that we should be putting these on the 60 meter band. That's all I have to say. I'm not really going to go much more into that, but the nets, I check into, our local repeater nets. I check into a couple HF nets, South Cars. I check into a couple times here and there, and they're great, but whatever. But like I said, I just wanted to bring that up because I really wasn't too thrilled with where they put it. You really don't want to lock up a frequency that there's only 5 of. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't even think about doing that. I wouldn't think about putting a net on, 17 or 12 meters or 30, a digital net. I wouldn't think of doing that, because those bands are put aside for just standard talking communications and goodwill, whatever. So now we're going to go on to the one last thing I wanted to talk about before we start seeing if there's any questions from the chat room. First of all, let's go to the chat room and see if anybody bailed on me. Let me see. I got one person kind of agreeing with me on that. Okay, great. But like I said, I'm not upset with the type of net it is. or the topic of it, what it is. You can talk about whatever you want. Short of doing business on the radio, you can talk about whatever you want. But the one thing I'm going to talk about next is I had a nice little chat with somebody on one of the hangouts, one of the chat rooms this morning. Actually, I went to bed early last night. I was tired, went to bed around 10. 3 o'clock, I woke up. I was wide awake. I was just wired. So I came in here, fired up the computer, and I said, well, let me get on Twitch and watch some of the Twitch shows. And I brought up the chat room, and I noticed a call come up. Somebody joined K4RJJ. And this gentleman's with the Paulding Amateur Radio Group. And we were talking, and I met him at a ham fest in Dalton, Georgia, where he was working the Linux in the Ham Shack booth, which is another good podcast. If you're interested in Linux and using it in the Ham Shack, this is definitely the podcast you want to check out. Russ, and I forgot the other gentleman's name. I'm sorry, I didn't have it up on the screen. But it's called Linux in the Ham Shack. So if you're interested in that, check them out. I'm going to try to get Russ on the show one time to talk about digital modes on Linux and as an option to either using Mac or PCs. Especially if you got an older PC and you don't really want to put Windows 7 or anything on it, but you still want to use it and just dedicate it toward digital modes. This would be something to look into. Linux is free. You could download the ISO, burn it, put it. I've got it on 2 machines. I got it on one here, which is a dual boot. Then I've got it on a netbook that I don't use much anymore on Windows. So I put a new version of 12.0 for Ubuntu, and it works great. I use it to scan the internet, get on Skype, get on Instant Messenger, whatever. Notebook works great. It's just that, it's an older netbook. I'm not going to put Windows 7 or Windows 8, which they're not calling Metro anymore because of a lawsuit that was pending or something. Somebody said they couldn't use the Metro word because has something to do with something in Europe, and it's not the subway, it's something else. I don't know what it was. But anyway, the Paulding Amateur Radio Group in September. So if you're west of Atlanta, right near Alabama, that border and somewhere in that area of Paulding County, Dallas, Georgia, they're going to have a ham fest. And the ham fest is it's September 15th at Earl Duncan Park. If you go to pauldingarc.com and type in that web address and put /Hamfest Flyer, all in caps. I don't know why they did caps. .pdf, you'll come to this page. You can get to it if you just go to the page and go to events, and then you can see where it says Hamfest Flyer. But this will take you directly to it. And there's the Hamfest Flyer. It gives information about it. It gives a little map of the roads about it and directions to get there. And it also has a little thing, admission's free. It's a great little free Hamfest. They've got covered booths, electric if you want to go there. Vendors are welcome. The club runs a food and drink concession, so it's a fundraiser to help pay for the use of the park and keep the repeater on. And there's a list of frequencies that you could talk in on. And so if you're out in that part of Georgia or close to it, probably about, 55, 60 miles away, something like that from there, maybe a little less. If my schedule's open and I could do it, I'm going to go there Saturday and check it out. But yeah, check that out if you're in the area, the Paulding Amateur Radio Club. And like I said, their Hamfest is for 2 childs and 12. So if you're in the area, check it out. Now, obviously, next weekend is Huntsville. I hope to see everybody in the Southeast that can make it to that one be there. We're going to be there all day Saturday. We'll be walking around. We'll probably be mainly near Ted Randall's QSO show booth. We'll probably a little bit. We're going to be near there. We're going to be probably near Gigaparts, hanging out around with Bob Heil. We're going to try to see and talk to Tom W5KUB, who will be streaming the event like he always does, and hopefully we're running him, get to talk to him a little bit. And then just walking the whole Hamfest. Everything's indoors. There's no boneyard outside in the heat. Everything's air conditioned inside. Really great venue, really good Hamfest to go to. So if you're in that area, if you're in the Southeast and can make it, definitely do the Huntsville Hamfest. Now, before the show, we were talking about how I've got a couple clubs that are sending me information on asking to come do presentations. Now, obviously, they're local here in the Atlanta area. And tomorrow night, we're going to be at one, and I'm going to bring their webpage up in a second. But I had a couple other people ask me, what about other clubs? What about doing it via Skype? And I'm going to start looking into doing that. If they want me to talk about a certain topic or talk about just promoting ham radio through podcasts or what I do with the show, I could do that for one of your clubs. And what you could do is you can send an email to me at this email address, info@HQARadio.com. And we'll check our schedule and we'll get back to you, and we'll see if we could do a presentation one evening for your club meeting. Obviously, you're going to need a decent internet connection at the club site or wherever you're holding meetings. You're going to need a decent sized screen so that people could see me. And I would recommend a decent set of speakers so they could hear it, and a wireless mic maybe, or a noise canceling condenser that'll pick up, everything in the room. Crickets, ceiling fans, whatever. But at least you'll be able to hear the people toward the back more. But you're better off with a cordless hand mic. They're not that expensive anymore. Something like a Nady wireless mic. You get two mics and a little bass unit that you could plug into your laptop with a cable for, I don't know, $89, $120, somewhere around there. So something like that. And then, or if it's a smaller group and you got a big screen TV and they want to just walk up to where the laptop is and talk, do that. That's no problem. But we're going to look into doing that, and send an email to me at info@HQARadio.com if you're interested. And we'll be more than happy to contact you and letting you know when we could do it. Now, the next thing I want to show you is the one I'm doing tomorrow night, which is local here. It's the Sawney Amateur Radio Association, SARA. Now, this club, I did a video on them last year. They were N4NE, and they were 4 Alpha Commercial, and they were #1 field day site for 4 Alpha Commercial. Had some really good points and everything. I don't know what they've done this year yet. I don't think they did anywhere near it, because the group kind of, some of the main people that were doing it left, and they were doing it in another location. So this year, I don't think they came anywhere near as close as they did last year. They may have. I don't know. We'll find that out November or December when the results come out. But there's a video on them on my website about them in Amateur Radio Weekly shows. But they're going to have a meeting tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And if you go to their website, which is SawneyRadio.com, SAWNEE radio.com. And if you're in the North Georgia area, even if you're not a member of the repeater and you want to come by, check out the map. It's right off of 400 and exit 17, which is Highway 369. You take that to Jotham Down Road, and it's right off of Jotham Down Road at the fire station / emergency EMC building. So if you're in the area and you're, like I said, even if you're not with this club, come on by and check us out. If you have clubs in the Atlanta area and you'd like to have me come by and do a presentation, like I said, send it to the same email that I had up here before, and we'll put it up again right now. It's info@HQARadio.com. Let's go back to the chat room one more time and see what we got here. Somebody had to leave for a net. That's cool. Yeah, it's the one thing certain. There's nets every night, so we were talking about nets. Somebody had to leave for a net. Does anybody got any more questions for the show before we close it up? It's pretty much been a half hour, and that's usually what we end up doing. Sometimes if we got a guest, we go over and we'll run at least an hour, but usually the show's been running about a half hour to 40 minutes tops. So we got any more questions in the chat room? If not, I'd like to thank everybody in the chat room tonight. Had a lot of people in there. KC2ZFO, KJ6YPV, my buddy Mike out in Mississippi, K5HUM, W0RDE, and W2JJC. And I appreciate you guys being in here. And anybody else that was in here and had to check out W0RDE, I think it was. Or, KC0BMF. I appreciate you being in here. Next week's show, hate to say it, might be a rerun. We're going to be driving back late from Alabama. I should get back in time to do the show. The setup's going to be the issue. So we're going to have to see what we could set up, or maybe get a guest in here lined up ahead of time and just do a roundtable type thing on that night. But we will not have a show in October. We're not going to have one in October because of the MFJ anniversary. We will not be getting back into town until at least 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time. So that weekend there will not be a show. So unfortunately, we're going to have to skip that one. But we're definitely going to try to do a show next week. If not, we'll replay something or we'll record something ahead of time maybe. But I'd like to thank everybody that's watching. And like I said, please email me at info@HQARadio.com if you have any suggestions for the show. Check the website under the About tab. We're going to put at the bottom graphics that if you want to download, just click and save as image of my logos for HQA Radio, like the one you see right there. I've got it in 600 by 600, 300 by 300, and 150 by 150. We'll put that in there, and you can click on the size you need to put on your website or your blog or whatever. If you hover over the shows, like if you go into my website and you'll see all the shows listed, hover your mouse over it, you'll see the link at the bottom. You could put that link on your website to link to a specific show, or just link to that page where the shows are. Please be my guest, and I'd appreciate it immensely. But once again, we're going to go ahead and close this out. If you want to follow us on Twitter, I've had people ask me about this. We are at HQA Radio on Twitter. So follow that, and you'll see when we post the videos, we put a post out on Twitter letting people know that it's up and able for download. Or if you just want to go to the website and watch it, go to HQARadio.com, which if you're watching the show, you're pretty much there. But I'd like to thank everybody that was watching tonight, and hopefully we'll see everybody here next week. This is Tom KB4HQA. This has been the Sunday Live Show for the 12th of August. See you next week, 73s.